Pisstown pals, Pisstown family. This is District Sentinel Radio, the newscast of record for the left. I'm Sam Sachs.
I'm Sam Knight, turning down the volume on my laptop.
Thought I heard a little something creeping in my ear. We're broadcasting out of the Sentinel Fort in Washington, D.C. as usual. Check out the website, districtsentinel.com.
Got to give a bit of self-promotion right at the top.
Go for it.
If you, as I'm sure our listeners and viewers know, if you pay $200 per month, you get to name the studio. We have the right to veto stuff. We're not going to call it the Racism is Good studio, for example.
No, we won't call it that.
But I just want to say that if you get the studio naming rights now, you will have them during the midterm. We will be going live on midterm night. We will be with you most of the night, so you don't have to watch cable news. And so we don't have to watch cable news.
I'm excited
frankly.
about this.
I'm very excited.
We're going to probably be on like a half hour to every hour for every hour.
Yeah.
Bringing you up the updates. We'll figure out what time, so it's something snappy like,
we're gonna
the Sam's on the 40s.
Yeah, because we're gonna need to charge the phones, the cameras.
Yeah, we got to keep the cameras charged.
Got to keep the
Gotta
cameras
keep the battery on the H6 here plenished.
We got to consult various data sources to refresh our content.
Yeah.
We might go in and out of victory speeches depending on what the C-SPAN feed is. So we might leave you with whatever is on C-SPAN.
So you don't need to watch those hellhole cable news networks on election night. You can tune into the District Sentinel feed. Also,
and the $200. Just to stress, this month is better than most for the $200.
If you up your subscription now to the $200, we'll be name dropping that studio name all election night.
All election night.
So you could think of a good name to own us if you wanted to. I don't know why I always think our listeners are trying to own us. Some are, that's for sure. Some are.
Some.
Y'all know who you are. What I was gonna say is we're gonna up our internet. We're gonna move the router into here. We're gonna need a more powerful one. So we're gonna be streaming good stream.
Nice.
All right. What's some stuff that's going on that we didn't get to in the newscast here? Oh yeah, the planet is
not doing well.
The planet's doing fine. Humanity is not going to be doing fine, nor will most other living species on the planet. The planet will still be here. It'll probably just hit the reset button on all life in the next couple decades. That's a new UN climate report, probably one of the most consequential reports on this iteration of life on Earth.
Pretty grim, and it's 80 degrees right now in October in Washington, D.C. It's very hot outside, so that report hitting very close to home.
Yeah, it gives us just a few decades to really enact sweeping reforms to cut carbon emissions. I think that's probably a little too optimistic. As each of these climate reports have come out, the time scale under which we can actually do something has shrunk dramatically, and the time horizon on which we're going to see some of the most devastating effects comes closer and closer and closer to where I think we underestimate, or the scientists at the UN habitually underestimate just how fucked we are.
Exxon has a plan.
Yeah, Exxon here investing $1 million to a carbon tax campaign, keyword a bipartisan carbon tax campaign. Even Exxon knows that shit's hitting the fan and they can't even pretend to not give a fuck anymore, so they have to pretend to give a fuck. By giving $1 million to a plan for a $40 a ton carbon tax, which would be not even close to what's necessary if we're going to institute some revolutionary reforms to stop, or to save humanity, I should say, or the bulk of humanity.
We need to seize their assets and give them wedgies.
100%.
Not in that order, or maybe in that order, whichever, however it works.
Yeah.
However it transpires, those two things need to happen.
Yeah. People need to look at this UN report and link it to capitalism.
Yes.
Like, not enough people are able to do that, unfortunately.
10,000%.
But that is the case. That is what's happening here. And the only way, it's not going to take carbon taxes or even weaker shit like cap and trade. It's going to take destroying capitalism, taking over these oil companies, and changing how we create energy.
So assuming that's not going to happen, where is the District Sentinel moving to?
I haven't done enough research to know where to go.
We need some fresh water.
Give us tips. Anybody in the chat room that is more on the up and up on which parts of the planet are going to be devastated first, let us know.
Last, we want to go to the places devastated last.
Yeah, we don't know.
Last.
We want to know though which are going first, so we're not just happen to be there.
Both.
Please tell us both. All right, we're gonna get to some haikus here in a few minutes, but first, it's Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. Here's the news. All right, the top story of the day, the resignation of UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She's staying on until the end of the year, and then she is out. There's enormous speculation right now as to the timing of her departure, whether it's related to a possible ethics violation or something to do with her political future, although she said that she is not running in 2020 and she plans to campaign for Donald Trump in 2020. Maybe she's just cashing out for a bit, going to make a lot of money out of government. Whatever it is, we'll probably find out eventually. Trump said he'll nominate a replacement within 2 to 3 weeks. There's speculation. You want to drop the speculation here?
Well, it's not so much speculative because the president just said it himself right before we came on the air. He was talking about how his daughter Ivanka would be a great replacement, but how he couldn't do that because then he would be accused of nepotism. But
that hasn't stopped him yet.
But he claims she's very competent, which she's not.
No.
I mean, you just watch her speak for 30 seconds, and she's very painfully not competent.
Same with her husband, who Nikki Haley said was, a hidden genius, a secret genius or something like that?
Trump wrote that line for her. Very obviously, he said, "You're going to go on TV and you're going to call my son-in-law a secret genius." And she said, "Okay."
Yeah. Anyways, Haley will remain on the job to deal with a budding foreign policy crisis emanating out of Turkey, where a Washington Post contributor, Jamal Khashoggi, was allegedly murdered within the Saudi Arabian consulate, perhaps with the complicity of the Saudi government. It's being alleged here is pretty shocking that when Khashoggi, a prominent critic of the Saudi regime, entered the consulate to obtain some paperwork to get married, he was kidnapped and murdered by Saudi officials. Turkish officials say that's what happened, that it was premeditated. So here we have a major U.S. ally allegedly murdering a prominent Saudi critic and contributor to a U.S. newspaper. Trump was asked about all of this today. Let's see how that went.
Mr. President, have you spoken to the Saudis about the missing Washington Post columnist?
I have not. No, I haven't. But I will be at some point.
What do you know at this point?
I know nothing right now. I know what everybody else knows, nothing.
So, not much there. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for the Saudis to investigate the death of Khashoggi or the disappearance of Khashoggi. I'm sure that will happen. Meanwhile, in the Senate, Rand Paul is promising to force votes on all future arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Paul, who may have suffered a head injury when his neighbor beat his ass, actually thinks the president may take action on this, telling a local radio station, quote, "The president may come around on this if there is any evidence that they killed this journalist." I'm not too confident.
No.
A shit here.
I guess the neighbor beat the hell out of the memory of the orb was just beaten entirely out of Rand Paul's head. Today, Bernie Sanders gave a foreign policy speech here in Washington at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, or SAIS, as it's called. SAIS. Sanders spoke about how Democrats and Republicans have largely agreed for decades on America's superpower status and a pro-corporate foreign policy, and how that has stoked the rise of right-wing authoritarianism, both here in the U.S. and all over the world. Here's how we can stop it, according to Senator Sanders.
We need to counter oligarchic authoritarianism with a strong progressive movement that speaks to the needs of working people, that recognizes importantly that many of the problems we are faced with are the product of a failed status quo.
Almost sounds like we need socialism or barbarism, as the old saying goes, or at least according to Bernie, social democracy or barbarism. Those are the choices there.
Bernie pointing at all those things moving in front of him.
Yes, he does, as he always does.
Yeah.
Sanders also hit out at the Trump administration and the president's praise of governments in Saudi Arabia, Israel, Hungary, the Philippines, and Russia, of course. He also lamented the good showing this week by the far-right Jair Bolsonaro in the first round of presidential elections in Brazil.
Join the club in lamenting.
And lamenting,
we are all
indeed.
lamenting.
And Sanders also, again, stressed that there's a connection between these regimes and corporate elites here in the United States.
Never before in our nation's history have we seen the power of big money over governmental policy so clearly. Now, we kind of take it for granted, but it is important that we understand what is going on. Whether we're talking about the Koch brothers spending hundreds of millions of dollars to dismantle environmental regulations that protect Americans' health, or authoritarian monarchies like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar spending millions in fossil fuel wealth in Washington, right here, to advance the interests of their undemocratic regimes, or giant corporations supporting think tanks in order to produce policy recommendations that serve their own financial interests, the theme is the same. Powerful special interests use their wealth to influence government for their own selfish interests.
Especially poignant on the fossil fuel stuff.
Yeah.
With the connections and the shared interest there between the Kochs and the Saudis and the other Gulf monarchies. Sanders concluded his speech by both attacking the status quo and for leaving us with this hellscape, but while managing to stay upbeat, did this while bringing up climate change in this context, which, as we noted earlier in the show, has been particularly depressing. And while Sanders didn't use the term socialism, you'll note he uses another S word here.
Does he say shit?
You'll see.
We must take the opportunity to reconceptualize a global order based on human solidarity, based on the understanding that it's not me against you or the United States against China, but that we as a world, especially with the threat of climate change, are in it together.
Folks, he's running. We will have more on Sanders on foreign policy in the next edition of the zine.
I'm looking forward to that. That was a teaser I was not aware of. You got something planned for the next zine?
I do. Well, he gave a rich vein of material today on this foreign policy speech. Should be good for a few hundred words. Why the hell not?
Cool. Well, let's take a quick break to read some poems. All new subscribers on Patreon, patreon.com/District Sentinel, get a haiku read for them on air. haiku time.
Ah, there it is.
I'll go ahead and start. This one goes out to ANA. Smash into pieces the Electoral College. It's fucking stupid.
Thank you, ANA. This is for Leland. The Constitution is also fucking stupid. It's dumb and bad, folks.
I agree. Thank you, Leland. This one is for Dan. When times get this dark and the despair settles in, Gritty is savior.
Thank you, Dan. This is for Kim. Reads climate report. Goes outside in October. We are very doomed.
Thank you, Kim. This is for Silas. Here on the East Coast, you hear stories about it. In-N-Out Burger.
Thank you, Silas. Finally, this is for Joseph. Giant hurricane or raging wildfires. Choose your climate death.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you to all the new subscribers on Patreon. Patreon.com/District Sentinel.
Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed by the Senate last weekend, as expected, after Susan Collins' instant classic of a terrible speech. That meant today was Kavanaugh's first day as a justice on the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, no one protested oral arguments. BuzzFeed's Chris Geidner was there. He observed this on Twitter, quote, "Heightened security today. The whole Marble Plaza was blocked off by metal fencing. The mood was a bit tense at the court, but there were no interruptions." It's a bummer. I was kind of hoping there would be interruptions.
Forever.
People have protested Citizens United at the court during proceedings for unrelated cases, and I don't know. Had that been an option on Predict It, I would have put.
I would have lost again.
I would have lost again. I would have indeed.
Yeah.
Geidner noted there were protests outside, but they were small, not like this weekend when the steps of the court were rushed after the confirmation vote. Also, during the oral arguments, Kavanaugh asked lawyers a few questions, so he's not doing the Clarence Thomas silent treatment thing. In 2016, Thomas spoke at oral arguments for the first time in 10 years. He, of course, is the other sitting justice who is accused of sexual misconduct during his confirmation hearing. In other news about the Supreme Court, today it unveiled a new list of orders. On the list was a refusal to hear a case appealing a decision to strike down an Obama administration climate change rule. It's noteworthy because that decision was written by none other than Brett Kavanaugh himself while he was on the D.C. circuit. As Reuters noted, however, the decision to not hear the appeal was made by the court before Kavanaugh's confirmation. The rule at the heart of the case regulated coolants known as hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. As we have noted on this show, the EPA under the Trump administration is trying to relax rules on so-called HFCs. Relax rules.
Relax rules.
Kavanaugh confirmation was a bit of a twister there, too.
Finally today, frightening report from the Government Accountability Office. And more reason to straight up just get rid of the Pentagon. Turns out that all these new high-tech weapons that the Defense Department is producing, well, it turns out they're extremely vulnerable to hacking, and it's something that military officials really never considered. Here's the kicker from the report. Quote, in recent cybersecurity tests of major weapon systems DoD is developing, testers playing the role of adversary were able to take control of systems relatively easily and operate largely undetected. GAO noted the highly technical nature of today's weapons and the various entryways that hackers can exploit. The watchdog criticized the department for not being aware of this, saying, quote, Yet, until relatively recently, DoD did not make weapon cybersecurity a priority. This is a problem that's likely worse than what's documented in the GAO report. The oversight agency used the metaphor of an iceberg to show that the DoD still doesn't understand the full scale of its weapons vulnerabilities. Really look forward to spending $3 trillion building the what is the F-32 or something, and just having it taken over by the Chinese and used against us. That'll be great.
Taken over by Chinese 14-year-olds.
Yeah. That is the newscast for today. Before we go, I see there's a call on the listener rant line. Let's check it out.
Cue it up.
Hey, Sam. Kyle in California. Sam Knight, just wanted to call in and let you know the news about your father, Suge Knight. It was very upsetting to me. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I read the news. Kind of left me feeling like I was hit by a truck. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that all the Sam fam, we're here in solidarity with you. The prison abolition movement. We're going to get your father, Suge Knight, out of jail. We're going to get Dude Slater out of jail. And socialism will win. All right. Thanks, guys.
Sounds like a fail-proof plan.
Yeah, what a nice call there. I didn't want to bring up your family matters on air, but it's good to know that the listeners care about you.
It's always nice to hear.
Anything going on in the chat room?
Yeah, Kevin says, whomst among us does not enjoy a sammed sack? Noah says, not sure about everyone else, but man, am I in the mood for some baseball today? Possibly a Red Sox fan, based on their thrashing.
I think
of
the Yankees will
last
force
night.
a Game 5.
Yeah, they might. Kevin asks, did the Sentinel cactus ever get a name? Not sure. Jason says the hot Piss Town stream. Bobby says about our midterm coverage, but how could I watch midterm coverage without Steve Kronacki's giant map and weird cartoon face?
Can't.
Kevin says suggestion for the Sentinel cactus name intern succulent.
Ooh, I like that.
Joe talking about the $1 million offer from Exxon notes that Exxon's net worth is $486 billion. And Jason says revolutionary reform oil execs into.
If they are looking to just get rid of money, though.
Hang on. You interrupted me here. Jason says revolutionary reform oil execs into dirt. Then Luke says disgusting stat, Joe. Matthew suggests Michigan is the place where we go when the climate change hits. A lot of fresh water
All right,
there.
I'm down with that.
And let's see. We got David says social democracy or barbaric democracy, referring to the Bernie thing there.
I think that's enough.
I think that is enough.
Call the rant line 202-684-6108. We'll play your message on air. Thanks to our sponsors, the Congressional Dish podcast hosted by Jen Briney. Find it at congressionaldish.com. Another sponsor, levelnews.org. The newscast is back tomorrow. We're here in D.C., so you don't have to be.
Jason says more like Nikki Haley.